Hi all, Vortex here. Today I want to talk about the event that has just happened this past weekend, which I also attended in the Bandai Card Game Fest, Dusseldorf. Last year I ended up making quite a ranty video talking about Utrecht and how poorly ran it was. And unfortunately, it's hard to say this, but Dusseldorf was actually worse this time around. And while I'm trying to be more positive in my content going forward, I need to talk about this event because we only get one of these a year, and it feels like every time they do it in the West, it just all falls apart. So today I want to give you a player's point of view talking about the Bandai Card Game Fest Dusseldorf, all the way from day 0 to the final moment in the venue. So let's get this started with day 0. So day 0 was essentially the last chance qualifiers, or essentially a glorified regionals for all the games that they have on offer. Dragon Ball, Digimon, Gundam, and One Piece. I ended up making the switch to Gundam a couple of months ago, and so I was participating in the LCQ, and I was looking forward to it. So let's start off with the venue. The venue was very easy to get access to, essentially just on the main tram line, just about a 5 or 10 minute walk away from it. And the venue was huge. I mean, it held essentially all of the games in one place, and also had enough space for stuff like regionals and also side events going into the following days. So let's talk about the getting into the venue. This was the only day this really functioned well, to say the least. Basically what happened is that you all queued outside. There wasn't any signage saying Gundam or Digimon or anything like that. It was just one big queue. And then once you got into the venue, you separated into different games. So one side was essentially all of One Piece, and the other side was stuff like Gundam, Digimon, and Dragon Ball. Once you got into the venue, you had to already have your deck registered, and this made sense because it was on the day of the event, so there was no additional bonuses like they did last time in Utrecht. So yeah, this was actually just a relatively simple process, to be honest. There was just essentially a check on a QR code, you get your badge, which was a general admission badge, and that general admission badge was this one. And I think this is where some of the issues come up, but at a later point. So after getting the badge, you essentially go into the main hall, and then you essentially get ready for the main event. You can't pick up your participant pricing just yet. It's later in the day, so nothing to really get excited about. So you're essentially just waiting for the event to go live on the Bandai TCG Plus app. And it was definitely a long wait. I think it probably was supposed to go live earlier, but unfortunately it went over time quite a bit. And that is very unfortunate, especially with being a best of one game, and there was only 9 rounds during that day. So you'd think you'd go pretty quickly, but we ended up finishing quite late. So during the LCQ, there was nothing else you could do. Well, there was a side event. There was like an LCQ side event thing that you could do. I don't know if people did that, but there was something advertised for that. But there was also food on site. You had to go outside the hall, and there was like a few decent food trucks there, but also inside the venue itself, there were like 2 to 3 cafes on the side, and that made it very good and accessible to get food or drink throughout the day. What I don't like, however, is the fact that the toilets were essentially both unisex. So if you're a female going into this event, you will be sharing the toilet with a bunch of guys, and I know that can feel very uncomfortable for some of you out there. So LCQ. Well, it went pretty well until around the 4th or 5th round for Gundam. Now, there were issues in some other games, which I'll get into a bit, but let's focus on the Gundam one first. Essentially, after 4th or 5th round, the pairings took so long to essentially get confirmed and sent to the phones. I think it was pretty much like an hour either way, and when the game is 30 minutes and best of one, it feels like a right slog. On top of this, we had multiple repairs during the game, most notably between round 6 and 7, where essentially some people were getting round 7, some people were getting round 6, so they did a repair, and then they repaired again, and for me, I got my same opponent that I did for the round 6. But that was the only major repair for Gundam. I know that for other games, it was a lot worse, mainly One Piece. I believe their tournament didn't start until 3 hours late, their LCQ, which means they were the final ones at that venue. And because of that, they essentially had to apologize and said, another 100 people can now make the main event tomorrow because of this misunderstanding. So when something like that happens, you know that there is a major issue with the planning of this event. Now, at the same time of the LCQ, if you were already qualified to your respected game, so I was playing Gundam, some people were playing Gundam, you could access the shop early and get your exclusive items for your specific game. I think this was probably one of the best things that Bandai has actually done at one of these events, allowing people that are already competing in these events to pick up all the stuff that they want and then potentially get some in the future days. It was a really nice touch, and just being able to get guaranteed access was nice. And even if you did qualify for the events, you were still able to go to the shop later on to pick up your badge and also the stuff that is exclusive to your game. But we'll get to that in a sec, because there was an issue with communication throughout the whole event, and it definitely did start with the LCQ. When the LCQ finished, I ended up getting 30th out of, I believe, 500, 400 people, and that essentially allowed me to get into the main event the next day for Gundam, which I was ecstatic about. However, we were told to essentially stand by and wait for announcements to how to get your badge or how to pay for a ticket. Yes, you had to pay a ticket for an event that you're invited to. I don't understand why, but that is what Bandai is doing. And with that, we were told to just wait. And me and my friend Joe ended up waiting for probably about like 2 hours, 3 hours without no announcement. And I did try to talk to some of the staff, and they were like, not a clue, not sure, wait for announcements essentially. And it felt like they were getting very agitated as I asked the question, so I didn't really want to disturb them, because I know for certain that One Piece was stressing them out, and I just didn't want to bother them. Essentially, when the Digimon Finals or LCQ was done, they essentially announced that you can go to the shop to pick up your badge. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, so people did know, but they just decided not to tell us maybe? I don't know for sure. But it was very frustrating that we could have just gone to the shop and picked up all of our stuff and left. So when I went to the shop to pick up my badge, what was the first thing that I saw? It was a bunch of staff members essentially in line waiting to pick up all of their merch, which was kind of annoying, because surely they would know about the ticket process, and some of them just didn't know. Like, I don't know what was happening, but there seemed to be a massive amount of miscommunication throughout this event, and it was very frustrating to see this. But I ended up getting my badge, and essentially I was told that I can pick up some stuff for the game that I was representing, so for Gundam. And essentially I was told to go in the line where the staff were essentially queuing up. And when I got into the staff of the line, some of the staff actually butted in front of me, and they were like, you shouldn't be here, and pointed me to get out, especially after another friend of the staff member came through and said, you're in the wrong queue. And I felt, I guess, like a certain way about that, because it just didn't feel right. It felt like I was just getting, I don't know, mocked or something like that. So I ended up talking to another member of staff, and they were like, oh no, they're wrong, you're in the right queue, just go into the right queue. And he personally escorted me to pick up my stuff. So that was very nice of that. I think he was one of the head people there at the event, but it wasn't really nice to deal with that. And while I can not confirm or deny certain things, because these are off from other people, it seemed like some of the staff were just very, very hostile towards certain players. Some of the, I guess, security for the hall itself were also having trouble with certain people as well, which not a good look. So after making top 32 in the last chance qualifier and making it to the finals, I ended up getting all of my stuff and essentially leaving for the night, feeling a little bit, I guess, meh about the whole thing. It was obviously great that I made top 32, and I'm very happy about that, obviously. But it also had the downsides of like the staff not being super friendly. Or at least some of them. Most of them were very nice. It's just like a certain few of them just felt very hostile, to say the least. But the next day, I must admit, was worse. So we woke up, me and my friend woke up, and we essentially went to the venue at around 8. I went to the wrong stop. Apologies, but essentially we were in a massive queue, and the queue wasn't organized whatsoever. On the schedule, it said that early access was available to people that have access to the competitive badges. So badges like this. However, outside in the queue, there was no line forming whatsoever for general admission and also competitors. And because of this, I think the staff ended up panicking quite a bit and essentially just stopped everyone from coming in at the normal time of 8 a.m. and everyone was allowed in at 9 a.m. This caused a massive storm of people to go into the hall at the same time. Upon entry to the event, you're able to essentially go into one of 3 lines. Essentially, one is just down the middle, which is access to all competitors and people with general admission badges, which is an issue. There is a queue for people that needed to sign up because they couldn't finish One Piece signups during that time. And then there was also people just waiting to get general admission badges. It was a lot, like too much. Upon entry, you were able to pick up the passport, which is like the stamp system to get a bunch of free stuff throughout the venue, which was quite nice and is a nice little memento because I guess it's nicely presented, printed well, and it's just a nice thing to collect and also get for free. It also included the promos for every respective game. So Gundam got the EX base, Digimon got Digital Gate Open, One Piece got a card that was way too much and people were trying to scout for it, etc, etc. It's always nice to get a freebie, and this is probably one of the better ones to get. Nice little memento and gets you some extra stuff at the end of the day. That's probably the nicest thing I can say about this event because this point onwards, it was a mess. So as the doors were opened late, it meant that the starting time for the finals were essentially a lot earlier than expected. Meaning that if you were going to play in the finals for your respective event, you have a dilemma because unfortunately, the shop has also opened up at the same time. And if you know some of the exclusive items from that shop, you know that they can go for decent money. And while not everything is about money, obviously, people want to get those collector items. I mean, for Gundam, the Soletta playmat and EX resources are currently selling for like 450 euros on secondary markets. It's just absurd. And it's even worse because players were supposed to get early access to the shop first before all of the people the following hour in advance. So it didn't feel great to say the least. It felt like you were punished for doing well at your respective game because obviously if you got your exclusive items, then you're set for the day. However, the thing that they didn't say was that some of the other items were going to be available on the following day. So stuff like the additional sleeves, so like the clan sleeves, the Tekkadan sleeves, the first exclusive Gundam box, the starter decks, etc. Those were only available for people on the second day. So you missed your opportunity to get them because they all relatively sold out quickly, other than probably the first Gundam box, which I think is a bit overpriced for what it is, but it was there. Outside of that, the finals ran quite smoothly. Everything was pretty much on time, and as Gundam was essentially the smallest game there per person, I think there was only like 92 maybe people there. We were essentially able to finish between like 2 to 3 o'clock on the day, which is pretty nice. I ended up getting 16th in Gundam, which was a huge success for me, especially as someone that has struggled with Digimon and quitting Digimon and trying to find a new game, and being able to do this amazing feat from just this short amount of time. It really did affect me, and yeah, tears were shed, let's just say, but that is for another video. So yeah, the event ran smoothly, and top 8, not top 16 unfortunately, was the following day, which was a nice thing to see. It's also important to know that the stream here, they had a stream essentially one for One Piece, which you can only watch on phones, and then for all the games, which was on a massive screen in the main area. That was really good, and they brought on some really good commentators, I should say, for each respective game, such as Andrew for Digimon, so representing UK, love you man, but also a bunch of other people from their respective games. I believe like Taj was doing stuff for One Piece, which is amazing to see. And the screen was way bigger this time than it was in Utrecht, so a bunch of people, I think around like 100 maybe, 150, were able to watch the stuff happening live. But there was an issue with that, and the issue with that was the stream was heavily delayed and altered throughout the week. They posted a schedule early on throughout the weekend, but essentially that was thrown out the window so quickly, and essentially some games got the shaft, and unfortunately one of them was Digimon. So you hate to see it. I think they were supposed to show off like 3 games. They only showed off 1 Digimon game, and then they only showed off the finals. There was supposed to be something on Sunday, but they never did that. So that was rather unfortunate, and yeah, that pretty much sums up the Saturday. I don't think there was anything else other than like side events. I did not partake in any side events because, again, I played 9 rounds in LCQ and then I played 7 rounds in finals. I did not want to play any more. So let's go to the Sunday, and the Sunday was easier to get into and all that. Essentially, the shop this time around was put onto a lottery system, and the lottery system just wasn't great. Let's just be honest, like, it wasn't great. Essentially, they punished you for trying to apply for multiple slots, and they said that you'll be kicked out of the line if you do that. And then also, it just wasn't good. It just wasn't a good system, and it proved that Bandai need to really figure this out very quickly for their following events next year. The Sunday was primarily for side events and watching the finals or participating in the finals for your respective game. As I didn't make it, I ended up watching the stream quite a lot during this day, while also supporting my friends in their side events. And from what I saw, the side events seemed to go pretty well. However, there were a huge amount of delays for some games. For example, a friend that I met, Steve, he ended up having to wait 90 minutes for a side event because the judge that was organizing that event ended up going for break, and they were gone for like 90 minutes apparently. So that was interesting. But then there was also just the fact that if you weren't doing good in the side event, people would drop the side event, which meant that people that were still in the side event and they ended up losing like 1 game, they have got heavily punished because their win percentage has gone down considerably. This happened to my friend Fraser and Steve, who were playing in the 2v2 for Gundam, and they were essentially first/second going into the final round, and because one of their opponents dropped the event, they got hit and got to 5th instead, which meant they missed out on the top 4 prizing for Soletta. I can't speak on all of the games, obviously, but I'm sure there is a huge amount of issues with a few of those games as well. Also, I just want to point out that I felt like staff were understaffed. Like, there were a few times where I was looking at staff and I was just like, I wish I could do something, because, for example, the Gundam event, if you weren't in the top cut, you essentially were able to pick up your stuff from the tournament organizer desk, essentially. However, they weren't set up fully, so they said on the intercom, come back at 3:30, and people were still hounding them to give them their prizing. Give me the prizing, give me the prizing. And they were like clearly just really annoyed about the fact that people were so demanding. And to be honest, I don't blame them, because at the end of the day, like, it seems like they were severely understaffed for certain things. Like, I'm pretty sure there was like 2 people doing Gundam, which is insane. So yeah, you hate to see those things, and I hope that Bandai can provide more staff in the future. But after the finals happened and all the announcements came out for Gundam and Digimon, I guess, I ended up leaving the event and essentially getting back on to the flight back to the UK. So yeah, let's do a quick overview of my overall thoughts about the event. This is a long one, apologies for this, but I feel like it's important to get every nook and cranny sorted within this event. So my overall impressions for the Dusseldorf Bandai Card Games Fest event was that it was worse than Utrecht. There were some additional things that they've done to help the experience, but with the popularities of TCGs exploding over the past year, it felt like that there was a severe lack of staff to help run the event, while also there was a lack of communication, there was a lack of guidance, there was, a schedule in place, but they never followed it through. This was just the constant theme throughout Dusseldorf, and everyone that I talked to about the events that was participating in the LCQ and the finals themselves, they were all severely disappointed with how it was ran on the days that they were playing. I think my biggest issue is that this is essentially just a massive advert for Bandai card games in general. And unfortunately, with how the stream was at times, like Digimon only got like 1 or 2 games shown, and one of those games has a confirmed cheater in it, which is something that you don't really want to be dealing with in a massive finals, but that is what happened, unfortunately. And while they did do some improvements to certain things like, you know, additional side events, try to update the shop as much as they possibly can to fix the issues with the shop, it just all fell apart. I think everyone essentially left the event going, yeah, it was pretty poorly ran and they need to improve for next time. Especially with the popularity of the One Piece card game at the moment for scalpers, it felt like a lot of the people there as well were just scalping. I'm not gonna lie, like I went through so many tables and people were just like coming up to me like, you wanna buy this Gundam mat? I know you play Gundam, do you wanna pay 450 like euros for it? And I'm like, no, that is scummy. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, yeah, there was a lot of that at the event. And I just hope that Bandai really reconsiders how general admission works going forward and also prepares for future events in Europe and America, because while I would say this is just a simple case of it being in Europe, this has happened in Austin as well, and it's probably going to happen in Las Vegas in a few months' time. And that is disappointing, because the most frustrating thing about Bandai is that they make really good games. Like Digimon, One Piece, Gundam, Dragon Ball, they're all good games and they have a huge fan base for them. They just can't manage events to save their life because they decide to outsource these events to third parties like OPE and other companies. And I'm not saying that OPE or other companies are bad. In fact, I really like OPE. I think they're a good group of judges and organizers for these types of events, but it was clear that they were understaffed and needed more people to help in these certain events. So yeah, it's 2 years on the dot that the Card Game Fest has been a bit of a dud. So hopefully third is better. I'll see you all in the next video.